Hello, and welcome to the Good Boy Podcast, the monthly conversational dog storytelling show. I am your host, Ilya Alexeyev, and this month's episode, I am going to do a solo episode about the movie Air Bud Golden Retriever. So the previous episode was just about the first Air Bud. Here, as of this recording, it is the American football season, and so I thought this would be a great time. I had just watched the first one. I'll watch the second one. Football's on my mind. Air Bud's on my mind. So let's go ahead and go for it. So in this episode, I'm going to try to keep it as much in line with the themes and the structure of the regular podcast, and not to try to get too much into like a film critique of the movie. So I'll try my best at that. I wrote notes, wrote some plot points, and so I'll try to dive into the themes that I like to discuss on this show. So why don't we go ahead and jump right in. This movie came out in 1998. The first one came out in 1997. It is directed by Richard Martin, who did not direct the first one, and it is the same boy, Josh, same actor. Unfortunately, Buddy is not the same dog, and I read while just gathering information about the movie, prepping for the podcast, that the movie is dedicated to the original Buddy, who died several months before the film was released with a rare form of cancer. So that's sad to hear, but he was 10 years old, so at least he had a long life. Alright, enough of that. Let's get to the action. The Good Boy Podcast, meat and potatoes. The movie starts, and there's a scene, and in the first movie, he frequently jumps out of Josh's bedroom window, walks on the roof, and jumps on a car to lower himself and then jump on the ground. In this, the family is going somewhere, and he jumps into the sunroof and hides in the back of the car. This is to sneak into Josh's basketball game, and not Josh's basketball game, a basketball game that they were just watching. What kind of struck me as just a funny moment was, it's like there's just this dog walking around like in the like concourse or whatever, like in the like in between parts of the stadium, like before you get to the court, and it's like nobody saw this dog. Oh yeah, and of course, like I'm not going to be super critical of this movie when I am critical of it, because that's not the intent of this show. So if I say anything like that, like I'm not like trying to knock the movie. I just find it funny. While I was watching the movie, I thought that like these movies did a good job of just really exaggerating a dog and their abilities. Then they have the typical Buddy montage where he's on the basketball court and doing all of that. There's a couple of montages of them shooting hoops, and then they take him to the vet. And another odd thing is their normal vet turns out to be on a year sabbatical. Don't know if that's a thing for a vet. It sounded new to me, so apologies if that is a realistic thing, but I had never heard of that for a vet. And so there's like a substitute vet. This vet turns out to have a love interest with his mom that I'll kind of touch on throughout the episode, but I don't want to focus too much on that, because again, that is not the purpose of this. Then it cuts to the villains, and one of the things that disappointed me about this movie were the villains. So the villains are these two Russian people who they have like the circus, and they kidnap animals. They're introduced by they see the news story of Buddy on the basketball court on TV, and like, oh, we got to get this dog for our circus. And that just kind of made me splinter off. Had like a side thought that like if there was some sort of like Air Bud remake, that it would totally it wouldn't be like, oh, the local news story, because like if this happened in real life, like a dog playing on like a school basketball team. Like, it probably would have first emerged on like Instagram or Twitter, like maybe even like Instagram Live, where someone captured the footage, and then later, ESPN or whoever picked it up, and then it would become this larger story. Just a side thought. I also wrote down just a kind of like a few funny moments in the movie. They're not the movie had. There were parts of the movie that were funny that I totally were not anticipating, and they weren't like laugh out loud funny, but it's like, oh, that's kind of funny. So like, his mom is trying to date, and they have these dates come over, and they do like a role reversal where the kid is basically acting as like the parent, and like meeting this date as the person going on the date is getting ready. The first two back out basically because of the dog. So I thought that was a good moment, just in the sense that it's like, this dog is part of the family, and so like if you're going to be a part of this family, it's like you have to be able to exist with this dog. Fast forward a little bit, you see the mom just talking. Sounds like she's like kind of venting, and she's talking to Buddy and saying, yeah, what do you think? Like looking for his advice, but it's just a dog. So obviously he can't help much. And then for some reason she was on roller skates, and Buddy pulls her, and she starts going, and it's like, oh no, she's gonna fall or whatever, down this pier, and she crashes into this guy on a boat, and it turns out to be that vet who saw Buddy. And so he comes over for a date, and of course, since he's a vet, he's good with dogs. Instant, at least surface level instant compatibility. And when he comes over to Josh's house, he brings a football and gives it to Josh. And there's a couple of like mentions of football before that, just kind of foreshadowing. And Buddy, they do show Buddy a few times grabbing the football and holding it in his mouth. And then later, Josh and his friend Tom, I believe his name was, are playing catch at the park. And Buddy is running back and forth, chasing them basically monkey in the middle. And so take a pause there and just kind of discuss that a little bit, because in my own personal dog experience, the dog and the football early on was like an awesome toy for us and our dog Mikey. So Mikey instantly fell in love with the football. We had one that was his size, not like a full-size football, one he could grab, but he loved that thing. He could catch it. We would play catch in the backyard, and we'd call it Mikey in the middle, and we were pretty much he could like never get it unless like we messed up like bad, and I would like toss him the football or let him have it on purpose, and he was actually he had a really strong grip on it, because especially when he was really young, we didn't want to have him the football too much because he was super rough with it, and we didn't want him to shred it up. So we didn't give it, like, we would try to avoid having him hold it for too long, so he couldn't start shredding it up. And so anyway, that was just a fun memory for me relating to the movie, and that brought back some memories, especially because Mikey doesn't really play ball anymore, so that was a good sight to see. Moving forward, Josh's mom and this vet, I believe his name was Patrick, I guess they're starting to develop a better relationship, and he doesn't like it because if you don't remember or don't know, his dad had passed away, and so I guess he's kind of apprehensive about his mom with a new relationship. So he joins the football team to avoid seeing them together. Then just another kind of like odd part was that like his mom is reading the newspaper, and there's an article of like string of animal abductors, and I just thought that was an odd foreshadowing moment. I forgot to mention as well that this movie has a 21% on Rotten Tomatoes with an average rating of 4.3 out of 10. So this isn't like necessarily like the deepest or strongest movie. So as well as me jumping ahead and not like point by point going through the movie, there are some things that aren't like the most fluid. So there's Josh has some football practice, and he's like in his bedroom, and then for some reason Buddy comes in his room wearing a Hawaiian shirt and holding the football, and that's an obvious foreshadow for Buddy playing football. But I had no idea why he was wearing the Hawaiian shirt. I mean, it was great, but it didn't really make sense to me in the context of a movie. Later on, Josh is depressed about this relationship with his mom and this guy, and so he's at the park, and he chucks the football to Buddy, and he catches it, and he kind of has like a whoa kind of moment. It's been a while since I did the last episode, so I don't quite remember how like powerful it was compared to when he saw Buddy make the basket. But it was a similar kind of like shock and pleasant surprise. And then there's a montage of him throwing the ball to Buddy and them chasing each other, primarily Josh chasing Buddy. And again, that reminded me of my own personal experience, playfully chasing the dog with a football. And I will tell you that it is very challenging. We see these, the animal kidnappers, I can't remember how, but they find Josh's house, and they go to his house while he's at a football game, and their like disguised truck is an ice cream truck, and so they pull up in his driveway, and as they pull up, Buddy is escaping from Josh's window, because Buddy does not like to be by himself, and he's climbing the roof. He jumps down off the van, the ice cream truck, and then there's a whole scene of them chasing him down the street and, through people's yards and all that kind of stuff. And as well as what I just mentioned about chasing the dog with the football, in general, chasing a dog is very challenging. There's the context of chase. So I'm going to go. There's the context of chasing an animal in general and then chasing them with the ball. They're fairly similar, but so especially in football, a lot of the game of football is about leverage. So how high you are. So if you are lower than someone, you have an advantage over them. Now, Buddy is very low, and we are much taller. So we have to bend down low to get him. And that is very challenging because we're not really made to move that well like that. So Buddy has this like insane advantage, and that's going to help him tremendously as he becomes the star of the football team. So as this chase progresses, Buddy eventually escaped. And with Chase, it's like they're just trying to catch him. Like they didn't have him. They weren't really close, but Buddy loses them, and he arrives at the park where the football game is. And so Josh is the backup quarterback, and as Buddy arrives there, the starting quarterback gets hurt, and so that means Josh has to come in. And Josh is a new football player, and he's not that confident at playing. So again, with the funny moments is Buddy is like behind the seats. He goes up to steal someone's hot dog, and that reminded me of a time where I had my hot dog stolen as a dog. So I was just at a party, and I was sitting in a chair, and I had a plate with a hot dog on it, and it was on my lap. And then I turned for whatever reason, talking. I don't remember what it was. And then the dog just took my hot dog, and and so I was able to empathize with that, because it is not fun to have your hot dog just stolen by a dog. Josh, his first play goes really bad. The first time he's actually throwing, he chucks the ball up to his friend Tom. And to no surprise, Guess who runs on the field and catches it? Boom. You guessed it, Buddy. And so then there's Buddy running around, and the whole team's trying to tackle him, and then there's, the kind of hilarity you would expect from a bunch of people trying to tackle a dog. And then another funny moment. I don't know, how great of a joke this is, but the game's over, and the coach says, he reminds me of Fred Biletnikoff, who is a, I believe, Hall of Fame player. Except he's better looking. So I just thought that was a little goofy. So then we have kind of the similar moment in the first one where it's dogs don't play sports. Josh is like, oh, coach, you said there's always room on your team. And they're like, okay, whatever. So then you kind of get into a montage of there's a lot of montages in these movies. I don't know if that's just common in kids/family movies or sports movies or just Air Bud movies, but a lot of montages. So then there's a montage of them training, and I thought it was kind of cute where they're doing push-ups, and even Buddy is trying to do push-ups as well. I think the coach was kind of skeptical at first, but then as they actually start playing, they have some shots, some action shots of Buddy catching the ball. The coach says, I'll tell you one thing, boys, that ain't no golden retriever, that's a golden receiver. And I thought that was a very corny line. But hence the title of the movie, Golden. No, it's Golden Retriever, not Golden Receiver. Never mind. But they rhyme. It was it's kind of funny, because Buddy needs a uniform, so Josh starts fashioning one together. And it's funny because they didn't do the whole, kind of animal play the sport. They're just whatever, he's gonna play. And so he's got a jersey and some pads. I don't know how well the pads help him, but then he has the old style leather helmet that doesn't have the face mask on it, and it's just around his ears. And I don't really know how it stays on, but they do have plenty of shots of him running around, and it's clipped in there somehow. And he looks great. He's number 9 because as you can guess it, K9. Ha ha ha! Funny joke, or Bud. So as well as being a great offensive player, Buddy is a great defensive player, and they show him stripping the ball defense, just running behind, catching up to the guy, and just grabbing it with his jaw. And on the first play, Buddy scores a touchdown, and the other team just is has their jaws dropped, and they're just completely, what? Are you serious? Another comedic moment that I actually enjoyed, was, I don't remember the exact setup, but basically there's a Buddy gets tackled, and there's a big pile of bodies, and they really over-exaggerate the tackling in this movie, which totally understandable. So there's this huge pile on which you would think, which should be on Buddy. Josh comes running up, and he is very shocked, or not shocked. He's very nervous and concerned. And then the shot kind of pans, and there's just a pile of bodies there, and Buddy is in the end zone, rolling on his back, as you could imagine a dog would, when they're scratching and being happy. And then that becomes a touchdown celebration. So Buddy was okay, he escaped the pile, and he is good. So throughout the course of the movie, when the mom and the vet relationship grows, Josh gets really depressed about it, and it turns out to be a father. He doesn't want his mom to not love his father, and again, I'm not going to go into that because this is not the podcast for that. But he ultimately decides to run away. Then, conveniently, the same night he runs away, the Russian circus people dognap Buddy, and he's just outside or whatever, and then they just threw a net over him. So eventually, Josh was going to run away, but he decides to come back home after talking to the coach. He realizes Buddy's missing. They cut to showing Buddy and all the animals locked up, and that part was actually moderately emotional and actually kind of challenging to watch. I believe there's an inherent theme about respecting and caring for animals in these movies. So, and there's monkeys, and I think there's a horse, and there's a parrot, and there's a bear. So there's all sorts of animals there. And so they have Buddy in this like wooden crate. And because Buddy is our hero, he ends up knocking it over, and through a series of events is able to break out of that. But while this is happening, the team is still playing football, and I believe they're in a playoff game. They're getting their butts kicked, and the coach gives a motivational speech. If you believe a dog can play football, then you can believe we're going to win the game. To further expand on that, because I thought that was a good moment in the movie for a number of reasons. I liked that they were inspired by the dog, and that is one of the abilities that dogs have, is they help inspire us. And it had a good message too, just about general confidence, where things were going well because they believed everything was going to work out with him there. And when he wasn't there, things fell apart. But if they were still able to do it, so they still can do it. So I liked that moment. I know it's probably fairly generic, cheesy, but I thought it fit well. Through a series of events, there's a monkey who drives ice cream truck, and eventually Buddy escapes. And of course, he makes it heroically in time for a playoff or championship game when the team is down. So they start doing well with Buddy back. They're down and they have the ball, and of course they throw to Buddy, and Buddy's actually tackled on the play. Now, with my eyes, it looked like a penalty, but that doesn't matter. That's just a side note from me. Buddy ends up getting hurt while getting tackled, and I mentioned there was like that pile earlier, but I think this is actually the first time that Buddy was actually tackled. And I guess in theory it would make sense that, like, if you have a big football player, and I know these are kids, but a dog could get hurt by being tackled. I don't think they were implying that, but wherever he gets hurt. And so, but the team doesn't give up or lose faith, and Buddy, Buddy is pulled out of the game, and the boyfriend vet is there, and he says Buddy's okay, and Buddy does some nice motivational barking to get the team amped up, and eventually they score the winning TD without Buddy. And I really liked that moment. I thought they were so dependent on him throughout the movie that it was a nice way to kind of wrap up that they were able to do it without him. I think that was a great message, because as loving and caring and uplifting dogs are, I don't think they don't do it by themselves. Like, it's a relationship. They help you, you help them. You guys need each other in to feel better. And so I liked that decision. I thought maybe Buddy was going to run on and catch it, but then, because of how my football fan brain works, I would have been like, actually, that's a penalty. He wasn't, whatever. Nice moment where they show the whole team petting Buddy, and, has like the nice music, yay, and all that. That was a good moment. And so, again, I liked that. Dogs uplift us, motivate us, encourage us. Then it cuts to the family going to a football game. And it's not really shown how, but Buddy runs onto the field, and the ball is thrown, and Buddy jumps up and catches it. Quarterback, who happened to be Warren Moon, says, "I don't believe this." And then it shows a shot of him catching the ball, and that's how the movie ends. So I thought that was a weird way to end the movie, but that's how they did it. So very odd. Just another point I wanted to make about the villains was that in the first Air Bud, sure, the clown guy was a villain, but Buddy was his dog first, and even though he didn't treat him the best, there was some sort of gray area where it wasn't quite clear cut, like, yeah, it's his dog, but he doesn't treat it right. So there's that gray area that made it far more interesting than just having like these like, oh, we're the Russian animal snatchers, here's our circus. They also were, I feel like they were in the movie less than the clown was, and so it didn't really focus on them that much. So I thought that was an odd choice. Overall, too, I thought the movie was a lot more jokey, and there was the jokes that I mentioned that I like, but it seemed like it tried to go for a lot more jokes than the first one, as well as being like more big budget. It had like more shots with the cameras moving. I wasn't crazy about like a lot of the jokes. The ones I mentioned were pretty good, and those I thought were like good dog jokes, but there are like other ones that I wasn't crazy about. And I know, whatever, they're trying to make a family friendly movie, and so like it doesn't have to be like 100% dog jokes or football jokes, but I thought some of those were a little weak. Overall, I liked the first Air Bud better. This one I appreciated just as a person who likes football, and it brought back some personal memories of my dog with the football. We tried the basketball with my dog, and he would hit it the same way Buddy would, but like obviously like not into a hoop, or we didn't try. So I think like in theory, just football makes more sense than basketball. The dog can't dribble the ball, but he can carry the football, so in your head it makes more sense with the suspension of disbelief. Yeah, I had a fine time watching it. You'd probably get more out of listening to this kind of abbreviated version of it, and with my commentary, than probably watching it yourself. I don't know if I mentioned this in the beginning, but I saw this movie as a kid, but I probably hadn't seen it in 17 years or so. Maybe, in the movie's 21 years old, so maybe 20 years, whatever. So it'd been a long time. I did enjoy the dog with the football aspects. That is fun to see. Personally, I could watch a dog catching the football all day, or just a dog catching any ball or frisbee or anything all day. That was enjoyable, but unless you really are feeling nostalgic, probably don't need to watch this one. And if you're looking for a dog movie, there's definitely better ones to go to, and maybe I'll get to some of those other ones later on. So I know this was kind of a shorter episode. I hope it was enjoyable, entertaining. It's a goofy movie, not the Goofy movie, but it was cool to just kind of like watch it with the focus on the dog and see what the dog does. I did look up, and they did use 4 different dogs on filming. I don't remember. I didn't look up for the first Air Bud, so I don't know if they had more. Thank you for listening. I know you had fun listening to it. Appreciate all the support. I've gotten some good feedback. I'm going to try to implement it as best as I can. I know I only do this once a month, so it takes longer for anything to be implemented, but appreciate all the support. Remember to subscribe to wherever you listen to this. Remember to rate it. Rating on iTunes is a really important way for a show to get growth and notice. So if you could do that, that would be awesome. As well as just sharing it with people you know is always much appreciated. Word of mouth, friends, family, coworkers, roommates. I can't think of any other categories. But just sharing it is much appreciated. Try to make it fun, lighthearted, bring a smile to your face, hopefully. Thanks for listening. I plan to go back to the regular episodes soon. So if you made it this far, you're the best. Keep on rocking and keep petting those dogs.